Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here, and today I am going through some recent Kino Lorber releases. Start with a nice, juicy 4K of John Woo's Face Off, starring John Travolta and Nicolas Cage from, I want to say 97, yes. Quite the film, this one, yes, and has quite a following these days, rightfully so. John Woo just recently put out a new movie in theaters, and it's now on digital, that being Silent Night, which I actually kind of liked personally, but doesn't seem to be doing quite as well as some of his previous efforts. But this is a time when John Woo had come from Hong Kong to the States to make movies. He made Hard Target, which is insane and insanely fun. And I want to say he followed it with this, but they're in close proximity either way. Brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. Icons of cool John Travolta and Nicolas Cage let bullets fly in this mind-blowing face-swapping action epic. FBI agent Sean Archer Travolta knows how to stop elusive terrorist Castor Troy. Nicolas Cage, he'll become him. Archer undergoes a futuristic surgery and has Troy's face mapped onto his, then infiltrates the terrorist world to discover his deadly secrets. But as much as Archer looks and acts like Troy, he doesn't really know him. He never figures Troy will retaliate and force doctors to transform him into Archer. Now the agent faces a shattering nightmare. His arch rival is living with his family. Travolta Cage star power comes on strong, and so does the excitement in this roaring thrill machine of a movie from a master action director, John Woo. So buckle up. It's going to be a furious fight. Yeah, I mean, this movie's pretty nuts if you think about it. It's a studio film about, like it says, an FBI guy going after a terrorist, and I had forgotten just how evil Nicolas Cage's character is in this movie. Like, he really takes pleasure in doing a lot of destructive things, and it's Cage, full Cage going pretty big, and yeah, it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them, and just the idea that you would get your face surgically altered to look like a terrorist and infiltrate his web of, contacts and such, and then have that terrorist do the same and infiltrate your life. A very crazy story, I think, for, like I said, a studio picture from 1997, but one that has a lot of appeal in that sense. I'd forgotten that. I guess I'd always thought of it as just like crazy over the top, silly from the beginning, but there's like an emotional component to it, and I think that's something that John Woo brings to a lot of his films, even when they do have the crazy action. Something like Hard Boiled, maybe one of the craziest, most incredible action films ever made. There are emotional beats to it that are sometimes, I don't know, for me, a little unexpected, because it's a different, maybe it's a cultural thing, I'm not sure, but I had forgotten that this movie, I thought it just came out of the gates kind of, crazy and silly, but it does have some emotional stuff in the front that kind of sets things up a little bit to be, I don't know, I guess it increases the stakes and makes it a little more impactful in that way, but it's nuts. It's a crazy movie, crazy action, crazy idea, and two actors at the top of their game, really going head to head, literally and figuratively. This is a really nice special edition. So you have your 4K and your Blu-ray included in this set, and it has reversible artwork, which is kind of cool. I'm not used to that cover. I'm going to switch that around. But yeah, so in terms of features, we have audio commentary by director John Woo and writers Mike Werb and Michael Colleary. Audio commentary by action film historians Mike Leader and Arnie Venema. And audio commentary by writers Mike Werb and Michael Colleary. So you have just the writers. So you have 3 commentaries, 7 deleted scenes with optional commentary by John Woo and the writers. The Light and the Dark, the making of Face Off, a nice, full-on, mini doc sort of making of the movie. And John Woo, Life in Pictures, also very cool, excellent addition to the features here. So this is a really nice 4K, and it looks very good, not surprisingly. But yeah, just one that I think has really built up its fan base since it came out, and is going to be very well sought after. That's Face Off on 4K. Then we get into some Blu-rays here. Let's start with The Last Tycoon. This is from 1976. Brand new HD master from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. This is quite the all-star cast. Just to name a few folks in this movie, this is Elia Kazan's film from F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Last Tycoon. De Niro stars, Robert De Niro, Tony Curtis, Robert Mitchum, Jean Moreau, Jack Nicholson, Donald Pleasance, Ray Milland, Dana Andrews, and more. Screenplay by Harold Pinter. And it's F. Scott Fitzgerald's fascinating tale of studio politics in early Hollywood is breathtakingly brought to the screen by director Elia Kazan and scriptwriter Harold Pinter. Robert De Niro plays he's basically playing Irving Thalberg here, but he fronts a powerhouse cast as studio head Monroe Starr, a thinly disguised Irving Thalberg, character in command of his studio but haunted by a love lost to the past. Dane Andrews, Ingrid Bolting, Tony Curtis, Angelica Houston, Ray Milland, Robert Mitchum, John Moreau, Donald Pleasance, Teresa Russell, and Jack Nicholson contribute stirring supporting performances to this richly detailed 30s-era gem. It leaves little doubt that Fitzgerald knew every side of Tinseltown from the glitter to the gutter. And it features a commentary with Joseph McBride, film historian, editor of Filmmakers on Filmmaking, which I very much want to check out. But this one, not necessarily that well received at the time of its release. However, it definitely has such an incredible cast that I'm really not even sure why it didn't get that attention. I mean, I guess some people just say it's sort of a dead-on arrival drama, but I found it very fascinating, just from the point of view of, going to look at this studio and seeing how the De Niro character is ruthless about his criticisms, like, show him watching movies in a screening room and saying, like, okay, you don't need to cut to this guy. It's like you'll see like a couple on the beach having a scene and they keep cutting to the guy's reaction, and he'll say things like, no, we don't need to see him at all. We just stay on her. And so it's just like continually him in screening rooms saying, cut this, lose that, change this. And clearly he has it in his head that he understands what makes a great film and why, and he is truly a prodigy, Mitchum is one of the guys who runs the studio with the De Niro character. But yeah, there's lots of, and then Ray Milland is also involved. I think he's a lawyer. But yeah, there's just a lot happening here. And as an inside look into a studio, a movie about making movies, I find it intriguing. I can see why maybe some don't find it totally compelling, but at the same time, this cast is just too much. It's too much not to be engaging on some level. So it's neat to see this get a nice Blu-ray, a new scan. It's a Paramount movie from 76, and a nice commentary as well. So that's Last Tycoon. Next up, we have Valmont. This is Milos Forman, who I'm all in favor of getting as many of his films on Blu-ray as possible. This one also from a brand new HD master from a 2K scan of the 35 inner positive. Legendary filmmaker Milos Forman, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus, Man on the Moon, takes on the classic novel Dangerous Liaisons in this delectable thriller starring Colin Firth, Annette Bening, and Meg Tilly. So this is his version of Dangerous Liaisons. And you can kind of see how it would, it almost looks similarly in terms of the artwork and stuff. Let's see here. In the 18th century France, a cold and calculating playboy, Valmont, that's Colin Firth, makes a malicious wager with equally wicked Madame de Merteuil, that's Benning. Valmont must dishonor the married Madame de Tourvel, that's Meg Tilly, by sleeping with her. If Valmont succeeds, he gets the privilege of Merteuil's bed as well. But when Valmont sets out on his task, the unexpected happens. He falls in love with Tourvel. And now Merteuil will stop at nothing to destroy Valmont's newfound passion. Co-written by Jean-Claude Carrier, who wrote Belle de Jour, and co-starring Fairuza Balk, very young in this, Sian Phillips, Jeffrey Jones, Henry Thomas from E.T., and Vincent Schiavelli, who I always remember from Better Off Dead and Fast Times. But I guess he was in Man on the Moon, too. The sumptuous Valmont spins an exquisitely entertaining tale of cruel intentions and savage seductions. This is from 1989. Has a commentary from film historian Daniel Kramer and art of the seduction director Milos Forman on Valmont. So an interview with the director himself. 137 minutes, 235-1. But yeah, this is cool because we're getting some of the lesser talked about Milos Forman films. We got Ragtime, a few years ago, and now we get Valmont. And it's very cool that his stuff is getting this kind of attention. This is one, I can't remember if I've actually seen it or not. It's definitely a movie I'm aware of because of his name, but I didn't realize it was a remake or a reworking of the material that is Dangerous Liaisons. So very cool to get that. Now, actually, this might actually 1989. No, I think it's just after that had come out. Anyway, cool to get more Milos and to get Milos on the disc talking about it as well. So very nice new release of Valmont on Blu-ray. There's some sci-fi stuff here. We have the Questor tapes from creator Gene Roddenberry, Mr. Star Trek. This one I was not aware of at all, and it has this is a brand new HD master from a 2K scan of 35 inner positive. Follow the incredible journey of one seemingly superhuman android as it attempts to find its creator in Gene Roddenberry's fascinating sci-fi telefilm, The Questor Tapes. From the visionary minds behind Star Trek, Project Questor, Robert Foxworth, who is in Ants, and he's in The Prophecy, and Black Marble, which is a really great movie we talked about recently, is cutting-edge technology at its finest, resilient and able to take on humanity's greatest minds. So Foxworth is the android. The one question that this amazing android cannot solve, however, is the location of its genius inventor, Dr. Vasilovic, Lou Ayres, and half of the tapes that provide detailed instructions on how his creation can best guide humanity. With a nuclear time bomb counting down in its chest, Questor must rely on the help of another scientist, Dr. Jerry Robinson, Mike Farrell from MASH, to solve the secrets of its origins, directed by Richard A. Cola, UFO, Incident, and Fuzz. This is an interesting one that I didn't know about at all, because I like to keep track of Gene Roddenberry's television films. He actually did several, but this one had somehow eluded me. And so I was very curious when this was announced. I like Robert Foxworth. I think he's a very interesting actor. There's some other recognizable faces in this as well that you'll definitely catch when you watch it. I'm not going to spoil those. But yeah, cool to get more Gene Roddenberry telefilms on Blu-ray, especially in nice-looking versions such as this. So this one is from 1974. That's the Questor tapes. The Quatermass Experiment, a.k.a. The Creeping Unknown. This is a reissue. I don't know that the scan is new, but this is a cool one because it is a favorite of John Carpenter, and there is an interview with Carpenter on Quatermass, talking about this film and the Quatermass films in general and how he likes them. Val Guest, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, directed this chilling film about a spacecraft returning to Earth with a frightening surprise on board. 2 of the ship's 3 astronauts have mysteriously vanished, while the third is sick with an unidentifiable illness. While doctors try to help the third man recover, an investigation takes place to figure out just what happened to his comrades. As it turns out, the survivor's body has been taken over by an alien fungus that needs blood to survive. After the astronaut escapes from the hospital, he transforms into a monster and attacking everyone who gets in his way. Meanwhile, Scotland Yard Detective Lomax, Jack Warner, and Professor Bernard Quatermass, Brian Dunleavy in this case, a determined scientist, attempt to track down the creature before it finds new victims. This sci-fi classic, also known as The Creeping Unknown. Brian Dunleavy is in Quatermass 2 as Professor Quatermass. I think those are the only 2 that he played it in. I may be wrong about that. But this is a really nice special edition. I think these are all previously included on the other release, but audio commentary by film historian, screenwriter Gary Girani, audio commentary by director Val Guest, moderated by Marcus Hearn, interview with director Val Guest by Hammer film historian Marcus Hearn, the Quatermass Experiment from Reality to Fiction featurette, and the Quatermass Experiment Comparing the Versions featurette, alternate main title and theatrical trailer. So a really packed special edition of 1955's The Quatermass Experiment, a.k.a. The Creeping Unknown. I remember liking this when I watched it when the Blu-ray came out previously, and so very nice to have this in a wonderful slipcover edition now, The Quatermass Experiment. One more sci-fi here. We have Neon City, starring Michael Ironside, Vanity, and Lyle Alzado. That is an interesting cast, I must say. Take a deep breath. It may be your last. Welcome to the year 2053. Brand new HD master from a 2K scan of the 35mm interpositive. If murderous renegades don't get them, poisonous clouds or deadly sunbursts will. The year is 2053. The atmosphere is lethal, and people are literally fighting for survival. When an iron-eyed bounty hunter, Harry M. Stark, Michael Ironside, has to transport a tough and sexy lady outlaw, Vanity, to another jurisdiction, they're in for the ride of their lives. Harry, his beautiful prisoner, and 6 unwitting civilians board an armored transport vehicle driven by an ex-con named Bulk. That's Lyle Alzado. Along the way, they will be forced to battle for their lives, but through gunfire and grisly death, unlikely heroes will be born, ugly secrets will be resolved, and the long-lost loves will be found. And at the end of the road, a glimmer of hope and new beginnings await them in Neon City. This post-apocalyptic cult classic features a strong supporting cast that includes Juliet Landau, Valerie Wildman, Richard Sanders, and the film's director, Monty Markham. TV's Baywatch. So this is one that I barely had heard of. I don't think, it's a Blu-ray premiere as far as I know. It's from 91, and it sounds like a little Mad Maxy, that sort of territory. But like I said, interesting cast, having Michael Ironside, who I'm a big fan of, who I actually got to meet at one point and was super cool. Really, really neat guy. Really lived up to, his reputation as a great actor and just a gentleman. But anyway, this is one I've never heard of, and so I'm very curious about it. And I like Mad Max ripoffs. They can kind of be a mixed bag, but this one sounds intriguing. 91, but feels like an 80s movie to me. And speaking of which, from 1985, we have a reissue of The Emerald Forest. This is John Borman's film starring Powers Booth. And this one does not mention a new scan, so it may be the same as the previous version. I don't know if it had this commentary, though. From John Borman, the director of Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific, Deliverance, and Excalibur, comes a wildly ambitious parable that transports us to a singularly imaginative realm. The Emerald Forest is an exotic and erotic nightmare, replete with one lushly entrapping scene after another. For 10 years, engineer Bill Markham, Powers Booth, has searched tirelessly for his son Tommy, who disappeared from the edge of the Brazilian rainforest. Miraculously, he finds the boy living among the reclusive Amazon tribe who adopted him, and that's when Bill's adventure truly begins. For his son Charlie Borman is now a grown tribesman who moves skillfully through this beautiful but dangerous terrain, fearful only of those who would exploit it. And as Bill attempts to, quote, rescue him from the savagery of the untamed jungle, Tommy challenges Bill's idea of true civilization and his notions about who needs rescuing. Co-starring Meg Foster. So this one, it's been a long time since I've seen, but I do remember digging this. And I'm a big Powers Booth fan. I love just about everything he does. And I'm a big Borman fan, so looking forward to checking this out again. Audio commentary by filmmaker Edgar Pablos and film historian Nathaniel Thompson. I think that's new. So that'll be your additional, and then this nice slipcase is also new. So Emerald Forest, getting another Blu-ray. It has reversible artwork you can swap out, which I think was the original cover of the previous Blu-ray, but it has new artwork that's very pretty too. So a John Borman underseen little gem in Emerald Forest. Next we have 2 Days in the Valley. This is from 1996. This I remember being a very prominent Tarantino knockoff type movie that came out in the wake of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction especially, and certainly looking to grab onto some of that Pulp Fiction energy. Even has Eric Stoltz in the cast, as well as Danny Aiello, Jeff Daniels, Terry Hatcher, James Spader, and Charlize Theron in an earlier role for her. Brand new HD master from a 4K scanner, the 35mm original camera negative. Take one wrong turn in life and who knows where you'll end up. For Becky, it's waking up next to her murdered ex-husband. For Teddy, it's the tail end of a failed film career. For Alan, it's being kidnapped by a crazy toupee-wearing Italian hitman. And for Lee and Helga, it's letting that hitman get away alive. And for Wes and Alvin, two undercover cops cruising the valley for a crime. It's just another day where everything goes wrong. 2 Days in the Valley. You'll live longer anywhere else. Writer-director John Hertzfeld's 90s neo-noir classic comes fully loaded with sex, violence, black comedy, out-of-control antisocial behavior, and a vast cast, which I've mentioned, but I'll go through again here. Danny Aiello, Keith Carradine, Greg Crutwell, Jeff Daniels, Louise Fletcher, Terry Hatcher, Glenn Headley, Peter Horton, Marsha Mason, Paul Mazursky, James Spader, Eric Stoltz, Lawrence Tierney, so another Tarantino connection, and Charlize Theron. Yeah, I remember this one being interesting, if annoying, and I really want to give it another look, because I think at the time I was a little less receptive maybe, or I had expectations for it to be another Pulp Fiction, which it could never ever be. But I did like the idea of this sort of shortcuts type movie with all these different characters. I mean, Pulp Fiction's very much doing that, but in the Valley, of course, California, at the time I saw it, I had never been there. Now I've been there many, many times, so it'll be a whole different experience, I think, this time. But this is a nice special edition here. I think this is the first time 2 Days in the Valley's on Blu-ray, but don't quote me on that. But this is definitely the best version. Audio commentary by writer-director John Hertzfeld, Sylvester Stallone, and John Hertzfeld conversation. Very cool. Q&A at Cinefamily with Charlize Theron, Glenn Headley, John Hertzfeld, and others. And the making of 2 Days in the Valley archival featurette, as well as B-roll and sound bites. So that's a really nice edition of a somewhat forgotten 90s neo-noir Tarantino-esque thriller, 2 Days in the Valley. And just a couple more here. Kind of a little late for the season, but basically one of the classics that had not been available on Blu-ray previously, and that's Babes in Toyland. Of course, this is the 1986 version, starring Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves, as well as Jill Schoelen and Richard Mulligan and Pat Morita as the Toy Master. Yeah, this one's definitely got a cult following of sorts, and I think there's a lot of people who have been waiting for this to come to Blu-ray. I think it had a DVD release, but it's been out of the conversation for a minute, I feel like. So enter the magical musical world of Toyland in this heartwarming holiday classic starring Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves. Once a bright and cheerful community, Toyland is in great danger for the terrible Barnaby, Richard Mulligan, and his scary creatures who live in the forest of the night. The only person who can save Toyland is Lisa, Drew Barrymore, a little girl from Cincinnati who lands in Toyland on Christmas Eve. But since Lisa, a very, quote, grown-up little girl, doesn't believe in toys, she needs special help from the wise but impish toy master, Pat Morita, and the dashing and gallant Jack Nimble, Keanu Reeves, and the mother of many children, Mrs. Hubbard, Eileen Brennan. Together they muster an army of toy soldiers and teddy bears to drive the villainous Barnaby and his night creatures out of Toyland. Wonderfully directed by Clive Donner, and this includes both the 1:33:1 and 1:7:8:1 versions of the film. So like I said, one that I'm pretty sure a lot of folks have been waiting for. No extra features, but still nice to have on Blu-ray. Finally, Babes in Toyland from 1986. And then we have The Exiles. This is an important one for sure. This is a really great restoration, apparently. The Exiles chronicles one night in the lives of young Native American men and women living in the Bunker Hill district of Los Angeles, based entirely on interviews with the participants and their friends. The film follows a group of exiles, transplants from the Southwest reservations, as they flirt, drink, party, fight, and dance. After graduating from USC in 1956, Kent McKenzie began to hang around with a group of young Native Americans in downtown Los Angeles. He then asked them to collaborate on a film that would present a realistic portrayal of life in the community. In 1961, it was finished, but it was rarely seen for nearly 50 years, with UCLA Film and Television Archive's magnificent restoration and milestone releases. The Exiles stunned the film world. It introduced a filmmaker of incredible talent and insight and revealed the subject that had not been seen before or since, the diaspora of Native Americans who had left reservations for the city. Gritty, realistic, beautifully photographed, and energized by a brilliant rock and roll score by Norman Knowles and the Revels. Exiles is a cinematic miracle. This is an important one. I know a lot of people are excited about this, including Sean Baker, who I follow on Instagram and who was very excited to get this release. Bonus features: 4 short films directed by Kent McKenzie, including Bunker Hill 1956, an audio commentary with author Sherman Alexie and critic Sean Axmaker, Last Day of Angel's Flight, a short film by Robert Kirsty, Bunker Hill, A Tale of Urban Renewal, a short by Greg Kimball, and WNYC's Leonard Lopal show with presenters Sherman Alexie and Charles Burnett. Very cool. Charles Burnett in on this too. Really, really cool release of this film, which is getting its Blu-ray debut and sounds like a great restoration and a very, standout kind of movie that we should be aware of. And lastly, we have Tokyo Pop. This is sort of a cult item with Carrie Hamilton and Diamond Yukai. This one, bleach blonde wannabe rocker Wendy Carrie Hamilton is disillusioned with her life in New York City. After receiving a postcard from Japan saying, "Wish you were here," she spontaneously hops on a plane to Tokyo with the dreams of making it big as a singer. Quickly finding herself broke and a fish out of water, she moves into a youth hostel for gaijin, aka foreigners, and takes up work as a hostess at a karaoke bar. Just when she's at her breaking point, she meets Hiro, Diamond Yukai, a rock and roller whose band is looking for another big break, or for their big break. They form a romantic and musical connection, and Hiro convinces Wendy to become their lead singer. Through a combination of hustle and luck, they stumble into their 15 minutes of fame, but Wendy soon comes to realize that being a gaijin rocker may be nothing more than a passing fad. An underseen gem of 80s American independent cinema from Fran Kuzi, Tokyo Pop takes us on a breezy tour through bubble-era Tokyo, replete with knowing nods to the city's vibrant pop culture. New 4K restoration by Indie Collect, created in association with the Academy Film Archive, with funding from Dolly Parton, Carol Burnett, and the HFPA Trust. Very cool one from 1988. And just one of those cult items that I've been aware of, but I've never seen, so I'm very curious to check it out. And this is a 35th anniversary edition. I don't see any listings for extras, but regardless, this feels like one that a lot of folks have been waiting for, a cult item that folks have been wanting to check out for a long time. So that's Tokyo Pop on Blu-ray from Kino. And that'll do it for this round of Kino stuff. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.